Hello and welcome to 5-Year Club video number 156, the true cost of a PhD, where I'm going to do kind of a simplified net worth analysis given different working scenarios to show you the consequences of getting a PhD in different situations. I think that very often when people talk about getting a PhD, they'll say like, oh, but your lifetime income will be much better. It's an investment. And that's generally true if you're talking about working for 30 years or 35 years or 40 years or whatever. But if your motivation is to achieve financial independence as early as possible, a PhD may not be the best way to do that. And I want to show you why. Something else to think about is just that, there are several different graduate degrees, obviously, right? An MBA, I think, usually takes 2 years. Law school usually takes 3 years, but then you can have clerkships after that, which can take another year or two. And, let's take the example of business school. A business school may cost $100,000 to go there, but you give up 2 years of your life to do that. So the total cost of business school is $100,000 plus 2 years of savings and investment. But the cost of a PhD is 5 years of savings and investment. I'm going to assume that the government's going to pay for it and you're not going to have to pay any tuition. And if your salary working would have been higher than $100,000 plus, whatever your salary cost was for the 2 years of an MBA, then in effect, in terms of your net worth, the PhD was more expensive than the MBA. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about the MBA right now. I'm just going to talk about the PhD. Let's go through my assumptions at first, just to get these out of the way. I assume that if you invest money in this scenario that you'll get a 7% return. And I assume that your spending throughout the entire scenario is $2,400, just my typical $60K budget spending. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. If you get a student loan, I'm assuming it's $100,000 for undergrad, because I'm assuming that you're not from a rich family, but you went to, probably some kind of private school, and they do charge a lot of money. I mean, if you pay full tuition at something like Cornell now, it's $240,000. And that's not even counting the interest that accrues during undergrad. So saying that you come out with $100,000 of student loans, yeah, it's on the high end of student loans, but for a private school, it's definitely possible. So that's where the student loan payment comes from, if a student loan is included in the scenario. I assume that the student loan rate to get this number is 6.8%. That was the default in some kind of student loan calculator, so your mileage may vary. I chose 6.8%. I assume that if you get a PhD, it takes you 5 years. Some people take longer than 5 years, but I know that kind of 4 years is very fast to finish one. And certainly a lot of people will do it in 6 years, but a lot of people also do it in 5 years. So I'm just going to stick with 5 years because it's more conservative. It's a nicer prediction of the PhD duration. So what I do here is I take a starting salary, like a gross salary, so $60,000 or $115 or $225, and admittedly, this whole sheet is focusing on more like engineering type scenarios because that's what I'm familiar with, and also because, frankly, with the student loans at this level, if you're not getting a PhD in engineering, if you're getting a PhD in something like sociology, I think it's going to be much more difficult to pay back those student loans. So I want to focus on scenarios where it even makes sense. I mean, if you're getting a PhD in something where there is no six-figure salary path, in terms of talking about the numbers, it really may not make sense. But, that's kind of a different conversation. Anyway, I get a paycheck calculator, and then I subtract $2,400 out of the paycheck that you would get. and then I multiply that times 12, and that is like the amount that you're annually able to save. So in the case of $60,000 annually, after I run this through a paycheck calculator, you're able to save about $15,000. And if you make $115,000, you're able to save substantially more per month, and so you end up with substantially more total savings for that year. And of course, with $225, you're able to save boatloads of money every single month, and you end up with a very nice annual savings. If I subtract out a student loan payment from $115,000, for example, that's what this one is, it's a loan, then I can save less. So instead of $3,902, I only save $2,360. Therefore, I get less savings per year. Same thing with the mega high salary job, is that if the mega high salary job, this is to simulate a computer science PhD who is like from a very good school, and that people like their thesis a lot or something, and subtract out $1,500 from this one, then we get something more like $7,000. So you still get to save quite a bit, but not as much. All right, so let's go down to the juicy part now. I want to explain what these different what I'm talking about here. So you graduate from undergrad at age 22, and you either immediately begin working at $60,000 or $115,000. I assume that you're not going to be able to get much more than $115,000 directly out of undergrad. And you immediately start saving, right? And you're going to work for 10 years. Then you're going to hit the black box. And the black box is, it's 10 years of working, and it's also your 30s. And what this means is that biologically, many people at this point are going to think about, they're going to get more pressure to have family and have kids. And that means that they're going to have more pressure to change their housing, to upgrade their housing to accommodate for that family. And when you upgrade your housing, especially in the Bay Area, above the $800 that's assumed in this $2,400 spending budget, that's going to cut down on your savings. And so I put the black box because the black box represents you're going to be sick of living in a cheap $800 room. That's what it represents. It just means that you're going to be sick of living that way, and so you're not going to want to save as much. I didn't model kind of the decrease in savings, but I just want you to know that once you get to the black box, a lot of the behavioral assumptions that you make about people become a lot more challenging to maintain, because you're 10 years out from college and you're tired of living like a college student. You're seeing all your friends do cool stuff on Instagram, and it's 10 years out and you're still living in this rented room and you're just sick of it. And so you really want to be out of this savings game if you can, because you want the normal kind of middle class American stuff. All right. And so the scenarios I cover are going to be, again, age 22 is when we start. So it's going to be a $60,000 salary, and then it's going to be a $115,000 salary. This represents, I think, non-technical people. This represents more engineering, level pay, especially in computer science. This would represent, I think, a less technical PhD, potentially. And then this scenario represents a PhD in a very in-demand subject, like computer vision or something. I don't know. And then we also have loan scenarios. So in these PhD loan scenarios, what I assume is, again, that you had a $100,000 loan with 6.8% interest. It's a 10-year loan. You defer that loan for 5 years, so you're going to get another $34,000 on top of the $100,000 balance. And then you begin making payments on that loan out of your savings every month. And as a result, you can save less than the people who did not have loans. After 10 years, I remove... it's not after 10 years. After 5 years, when I assume that you're just like tired of having this loan hanging around, and so you just pay it off. And after you pay it off, you kind of get an upgrade to the good salary. Oh, I wonder if I messed this up. Let's go see. So the good salary is going to be D4. And that's, you got D6 for that year. Looks like this needs to be D4. And then we extend this down. And then this one needs to be D5. And then we extend this down. All right, and before I was matching up these right here. Now I need to match them up more like right there. Pink. Pink. And this will change to green, so that helps that guy out a little bit. Cool. Okay. Really? I just like messed up my my border thing too. Fine, let's do it. All right, we're back in business. Yeah, so anyway, I assume that you don't want this $78,000 hanging over your head. It's annoying to have this $1,500 a month obligation. And so the reason why I pay it off after 5 years is because you kind of have a decent like savings nest egg going at this point after 5 years. And so you can comfortably pay off the $78,000 student loan balance after these 5 years and keep going with your life. And so you do. And then after you pay off that student loan balance, of course, I just set you up with that higher compensation. All right, and then the $115,000 I wanted to match up with. Let's see, it really only matches up like here. Oh man. Color, keep going. Okay, that will let us compare them a bit more. All right, and so the point of these different colors, right, is I'm trying to show you which scenarios you kind of catch up with what other scenarios. So for example, if you came out of college with a computer science degree and you just immediately started living frugally and saving your money, and I don't assume any salary increase here, even though you would get some kind of salary increase if you were working a job. After 10 years, you have $739,000. Well, that's a very good result. If instead of working, you had joined a PhD program with no loan, then you would be worth roughly the same in 10 years. And so if your goal is to be worth, somewhere near $750,000 in 10 years, the PhD isn't really going to help you reach the goal that much. Now, the PhD might be something that you would enjoy doing. You probably won't enjoy having the loan hang over your head there's no loan in this scenario, but the PhD may be something that you enjoy doing. And of course, the PhD is going to give you a better kind of 20-year outcomes. You're going to have 2.6 million instead of 1.919 million. And that's nicer. That's a nicer number. But 1.919 million is not bad either. And so, basically, if you can make good money coming out of a CS degree in college, and your goal is to reach a modest financial independence in 10 years, the PhD is not going to help you that much with that goal. If anything, the PhD will simply make the goal uncertain, because investing at 7% for 10 years is more reliable than investing at 7% for 5 years because of volatility. So these 5 years may be 5 really good years, or they may be 5 really bad years, and then you don't have as good an outcome as the guy who just who just came out. Now, of course, the $60,000 person is not going to, do as well as the person with $115,000 because they don't have as much of that extra income to save. They can still do quite well. $610,000 is no slouch around age 40, 41. That gives you a lot of flexibility. And what we can see is that if you are a computer science major, or sorry, this wouldn't be a CS major. I guess this would be more like right here. This would be like, I don't know, somebody who's a little bit more liberal artsy, but they get a PhD. So they come out making a good amount, but it's not the same as the really in-demand engineering subjects. As it turns out, that loan payback is going to hurt a lot. And you're going to end up with about the same as if you had just started working at $60,000 immediately, because you had both the lack of income during these years, the lack of invested income during these years that had many years to compound, and because you had to pay back that student loan, and that decreased the amount that you were able to save. And then finally, we can look at the fantasy scenarios, and we can see obviously the most profitable long-term scenario is doing a PhD and getting 225. And if you have a loan, you still do quite well, even because the loan relative to the increase in income due to this degree is not that bad. But we can see here that, if you have a loan with that kind of really nice $225,000 job, your outcome at age 36 is actually just comparable to the CS graduate who started working immediately. And so if you're not in college yet, and you're thinking about your total college career, actually, like, not having the student loan debt is as important as getting the fancy PhD. That's one way to put it. Yeah. So, and then finally, I guess we can cover the scenario where you get the PhD, you don't have debt, you still get kind of a decent outcome here. What did this match up with? I guess I just matched this up with this outcome right here to basically just show that, like, if you're not going to get any income increase from a PhD, you're just delaying your savings for 5 years. So you're just kind of delaying your retirement for 5 years. You're delaying your life for 5 years. Okay. I don't want to say you're delaying your life for 5 years. Maybe you really enjoyed the PhD. That's a fair thing. But again, this video is it's talking about the value of a PhD for someone who is focused on financial independence. All right. So what are the takeaways from this? Well, for me, the takeaways have been, if you are interested in early financial independence, it's very important to have a six-figure income early in your career. That's like the easiest way, essentially, to do it. And the reason why that's the easiest way to do it is because applying for this PhD program and selecting the in-demand subject and getting in and actually completing the PhD is very difficult. And I would say that it's more difficult than just getting an engineering job and working. You have more, education programs are essentially open-ended hours. And so you work all day long, you work in the night, you work in the weekend, you're not getting a paycheck saying congratulations for doing this, you're just working without end. And yeah, after 5 years, you have this nice, PhD diploma, and you can earn the big bucks now. But you're also behind, and potentially you also have student loans to pay back. And you know, if the point of it was kind of net worth for freedom, then you still got more years to go to achieve that. And another thing you can look at here is you can look at the difference between a PhD person and, the difference between a loan person and a non-loan person at the end of their career in terms of what their net worth is. So, you know, here is a $115,000 scenario with no loan. Here is a $115,000 scenario with a loan. And we can see that it's like a $576,000 difference on that net worth. That is pretty substantial. Oh, I need to put this down there. Oh, good. It's not that bad. I didn't think it was. All right. So, oh, I hate Excel. This video is not going well. Yeah, so that would be about 800,000. So about 200,000 here, you know, plus another 100,000 plus 76,000. So about $376,000 was the cost of your PhD in terms of your eventual net worth. And this gap is only going to increase. Not the cost of the PhD. It's the cost of the loan. Oh, I need to get in bed. And, you know, here at the $225,000 level, we see, you know, something kind of similar, is that the cost of it is about $390,000 was the total cost of the loan in terms of your net worth. And so that loan was not a $134,000 loan. That loan was a $390,000 loan because of the opportunity cost of the money that you had to pay kind of down on the loan early in your career. They don't tell you about that when in the loan paperwork. They don't phrase it that way in the loan paperwork. Yeah, so time matters a lot, and if you want to retire early, having that higher six-figure income a lot, avoid debt like the plague because it will damage your net worth severely. All right, that's it for video number 156. Sorry about the crappy spreadsheet, and sorry about some of the misstatements. It's 10:25. I'm definitely ready for some Law and Order. Hope you are too, and hope you have a fabulous evening. Good night.